I'm Felicia Perry, the Executive Director of the West Broadway Business and Area Coalition. I want to remind you of WBC's commitment to connecting you to available resources, as well as working with our community partners to create new ways to resource and meet the needs of the business community. Our Northside Business Luncheons are a monthly gathering for networking and information on select topics. We've hosted this month's Business Luncheon virtually.
Hello everyone, this is Warren McLean, President of N.E.O.N. Thanks so much for joining us for this month's Luncheon on Creative Entrepreneurs. First, I want to reiterate that N.E.O.N is here for you. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. Call us at 612-302-1505 or email us at info@neon-mn.org. We'll get back to you within 24 hours, if not sooner. We know that the effects of the recent uprising are still being felt by business owners. If you have a Northside business that has experienced damages, we encourage you to reach out to Stephen Obeyawana at stephen@neon-mn.org. He can help you navigate the insurance process and connect you with legal services if necessary. You can also find these resources on N.E.O.N's website under Northside Business Damages. Regarding emergency funding, the Paycheck Protection Program deadline has been extended to August 8th, and the terms of the loan have changed. A maximum of 40% of the amount forgiven can now be used on non-payroll expenses, and you now have 24 weeks to use the funds. If you have questions about applying for PPP forgiveness, N.E.O.N has compiled instructions on our website under COVID-19 business information. Finally, for businesses who apply for the state of Minnesota's deed grants, emails will likely be sent in the next week or so that to those that were selected. The grants were done by lottery. If you were selected, you should respond ASAP with the information requested. If you do not respond within the allotted time, you'll forfeit the grant, and the next person on the waiting list will be selected. Once again, N.E.O.N staff is here for you and your business. You are not alone. We hope you enjoy the discussion.
Great. Okay, thank you so much, Felicia. So like Felicia said, I'm Anna Schmiel, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator at N.E.O.N. And so I co-host these luncheons with Felicia. And today's topic is about creative entrepreneurs, and we have three lovely panelists that I'm just going to give brief little intros, and then we're going to jump into the panel questions. So once I am doing your intro, if you can, do a little hand wave so everyone knows who you are, that would be great. Okay, so the first panelist is Adia Morris Swanger, and she's the program manager of professional development at Springboard for the Arts, where she manages the artist career consultant roster, teaches business skills workshops for artists, and connects artists to funding opportunities with the Incubator Fiscal Sponsorship Program. She's been a freelance theater artist, dancer, choreographer, writer, and educator in the Twin Cities for many years, working with the Guthrie Theater, Jungle Theater, Park Square Theater, and Threads Dance Project, among others. She also appears as a monologuist on Twin Cities Public Television's Almanac, and was the host of TPT's TV Takeover. So that's the first panelist here. And then, thank you so much for joining us. And then our next panelist is Gulgun Kayim. And Gulgun has worked across sectors for many years in the fields of public arts and location-based performance, and directs the Office of Arts, Culture, and the Creative Economy at the City of Minneapolis. As an author, she writes on the role of narrative in the built environment with a focus on socially engaged creative practices, contested landscapes, urban planning, and economic development. She holds an MFA in theater directing from the University of Minnesota and a degree in intercultural performance from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She's a 2017-2018 Stanford University Creative Cities Fellow, and in 2014 received a Public Service Rising Star Award from Hamline University in recognition of the innovative Creative City Making program. Her creative work has been presented in the US, Russia, and the UK, and her homeland of Cyprus. She is a founder of the Skewed Visions, a local performance club, and a core member of the International Artist Network, Mapping Spectral Traces. So thank you so much for joining us, Gulgun. And then last but not least, we have Cara Deans, who is the owner and CEO of the Roho Arts Collective and is a cultivator, activator, and curator of mind, spirit, and soul that aims to create spaces and opportunities for individuals to become all that they're created to be. Cara's professional career started in youth development and has grown from there. With a strong mind for business, she landed in the development field, doing grant writing and fundraising and donor relations. With this skill set, Cara began offering services to friends and community members that were trying to start or scale their businesses, plan events, and pursue entrepreneurial ventures. She thrives in a community grassroots setting that are organic and with people who want to create genuine and relevant impact that will be a positive force to make our world better. So thank you so much for joining us, Cara. Okay, so without further ado, we're gonna launch into those questions. So the first question is, what are some common misconceptions of making a living as an artist?
I can start. I'm Adia, she, her, and I'm sure those of you who are creatives already know this, but number one is that you're going to be signing up for poverty for the rest of your life. I do want to say that's a misconception. That you don't have enough resources, that you are disorganized or don't know how to run a business. Those are a few things that I can think of right off the top of my head, at least when folks come into workshops for Springboard. That's some of the baggage that they bring into the room.
I would add to what Adia has just said and agree with all that, and also say that many, at least speaking for myself and some artists that I've come into contact with, a common misconception, especially those starting new, is that there's some kind of planned pathway out there that someone needs to find and then get on. The reality is that as artists come into their work, not from a place of, I'm going to make this thing and find my audience. Excuse me, I'm gonna look for the product and then you know, then find the audience that's interested in it. They start from a place of passion, and often you have no idea who your audience is or how to get what your passion is, turn that into something that can also feed you monetarily. Often artists are creating the pathways that they're having to walk down. They're often innovators and making it happen. So there aren't those structures already in the system to, you know, like say a lawyer or a doctor, where it's already set out for you, just have to find it. That's, I think, especially speaking for myself, I walked into making art thinking, I'm sure there's a way into this and someone will show me.
Yeah, I'll just add, I mean, what you guys already said is, of course, true. I think another misconception is that artists and creatives just have kind of one field that they're in, or like one medium, but usually creative folks have like multiple streams of creative outlets that they're doing, that they're receiving income for or trying to build. So I think one thing that's a challenge as well within that is, you know, kind of branding, and how do you brand yourself when you have all of these different avenues of creativity that you're trying to build on. So I think for most of us, there's also a lot of different things that we are trying to do and trying to accomplish and build all at the same time. And that can be complicated and complex because, like you said, there's no roadmap for that. There's not a structured like mentorship for that. And in those venues that there might be, it's like, how do you access that? How do you find that and still have time to be creative? So I think that that too. It's like, it's not just one thing, usually for most people.
I will also add there's a misconception that you have to work, at least from the performing arts side, that you have to work for free just because you're new. Not true.
Not true.
Not true.
Yeah.
Really agree with that.
I think one thing I'm really passionate about, like changing, is that starving artist stereotype, and the fact that we don't have to pay each other for our services, right? Or that you can expect not to be paid, and that you have to grind for how many years to, you know, sell yourself for free. No. I hate that. I don't like that. And working to change that thought process, whether you sing, dance, whatever. Oh, well, can't you just come and do this? No, you need to pay for your services that you're using, because you've invested your time and your talent into, you know, building your creativity. So I think that is definitely one area, Ada, that I really aim to try to change.
Springboard too, definitely.
Yeah.
Those are really good points. And that leads perfectly into the next question of how do you establish yourself as a creative consultant, or someone that really can make a living with this, especially trying to fight against that, you know, perceived idea that you need to work for free for a certain number of years. Like, how do you support yourself when you're trying to do that?
I would say it's field specific, because each field has its own challenges. I mean, there is this concept of having to prove yourself, and I found that here locally. As you can tell, I'm not from this community, and I found this really strange kind of invisible barrier of how somehow in the theatre community there was this idea that newcomers were had to prove themselves somehow, and I could never figure out how, when I had proved myself, and how I could get in.
Right.
So that was actually something that I think is really typical to hear. That said, that's not necessarily typical in other places. I know that youth are really celebrated in lots of different places that I've been creative in, especially talented youth. In fact, they're carving ahead and making, showing us older folks how to, you know, what the new world looks like. So in terms of establishment, I think it's a lot connected to your connections. It's connected to people that can support you and are supportive of you. People that may be your mentors, who have helped you train in your particular discipline, who can connect you to others. I think this is a profession where connections should not be underestimated. Those personal relationships or even professional relationships do lead to work. So establishing yourself is really about, you know, that there's this, when have you arrived is always a question for anyone in their discipline and profession. You know, when is your craft reached its maturity? That's a personal question for you, but establishment is about getting into the business and doing your work, just basically doing it. And as I said, I think in this place, that is has been somewhat of a challenge, and I'm hoping that that's changing.
Yeah, I would echo the networking piece really strongly. Showing up to events and places and getting to know people that you want to work with, or who are in a field that you're working in or wanting to work in, can be one of the most powerful things. I, as a theater artist, have gotten most of the last 90% of my jobs because people know me, right. Not necessarily because I had the best look or the right look. Like one of my favorite jobs last year was somebody just wrote me on Facebook and was like, "Hey, can you come do this?" And I had missed I missed several messages. I don't really monitor Facebook messages that well. But I could do it without an audition because I had some work online that they were able to view. So I got a really great gig that was easy, and it was all just because I know people and people know me. So I would echo that really strongly. And also that touches on like the availability of having some kind of presence on the internet. Even if it's not super fleshed out, please don't go to my website right now. But having something of yourself on the internet can be really helpful, especially if somebody's just trying to get a sense of who you are and what you do. If they can at least establish that piece, then getting to know you is a little easier. I wouldn't underestimate the power of Instagram right now, especially for visual and performing artists. It really does make a difference as we all move more and more and more online.
Cool. I think for myself, the establishment came in a little bit of a different way because I still, and this is just my own personal struggle, because my creativity is more in the line of the business end of art and how do you build your business, and not necessarily like, I'm never going to have a show that you can come to and see. So I really struggled with calling myself an artist or calling myself creative, even though that's the world that I was in and desired to be in and and gravitated to, even when I was in different work environments and field, always being in that world. And so I really just had such a desire to just help people and help artists who were trying to figure out, okay, how do I get my LLC, or how do I, establish myself online? What should that look like? Or, all of the multiple questions that come on the back end for artists while people are busy being creative. So I use my creativity in a different way. And really it just happened organically. I was talking to my husband, who is an artist, in that way, a painter is his medium. And I'm like, I am your first agent. You were my first client. And so it's really just kind of like through trial and error and being a grant writer by trade. So just having information on that end that I would just share with people, and how I was able to do that to where it would just make sense, right? So for me, just getting comfortable with who I am and my title and being comfortable in the art world, and just having a business creative medium is how I have sliced and diced it up. And I'm gonna just be okay with that. And I'm gonna be okay that I cannot draw or dance. I sing, I used to dance, but it's not what I'm doing right now. So I think too, just being comfortable with where and who you are and staying in that lane. And I'm gonna stay in my lane.
That kind of touches on the same idea of like, how do you define success? Because I know, Gulgun, you brought that up of like, what's your definition of success, not necessarily what everybody else is expecting you to do. When I said I was going to be an actor, everybody's like, when are you moving to California? It's like, no, I'm not. I hate LA. It's gross. Sorry if I offended any people who live in LA or have lived in LA. But yeah, finding your own definition and figuring out what that would look like for you is a really important factor in figuring out, not necessarily when you've arrived, but whether or not you're on that path that Cara and Gulgun talked about, whether or not you're following your own signposts, not anybody else's.
That also perfectly leads into the next question. Well, more so what Cara was saying about, the work that she does supporting and nurturing artists. So the next question is, how do you find contracts and grants to apply for, and how do you apply? Is there a specific format you should use when applying? And then, yeah, let's just leave it at that for now.
I can go into the grants area, and if others want to take the contracts. I used to work at the Bush Foundation, so I was on the other end of the grants, even though I was also an artist, applying for a lot of grants as well. So the just simple answer to that one question of, is there a specific format, is no. every single foundation and grantor have their own idea of what they want. And it is a lot of work to figure out what they want and then what you want. I think the most important thing is, especially in the grants world, because it takes up so much energy to apply for a grant, is first the question to yourself, is this absolutely what I need? And can I follow through on the requirements of this? Because it's a contract. A grant is a contract between you and the funder saying, hey, I'm going to do this within this amount of time, and I can report back in the way you wish me to report back. So you got to ask yourself that question, because it takes a lot of time and energy to put them together, to do the research behind them, to answer the questions, and then to collect the information they ask for at the end and deliver it. It is work. It is not free money. You are working for it. So, and it takes a lot of research to find the right grant for your project, because you may have an amazing idea and no funder is there to support that idea. You have to kind of twist and turn to get your idea to fit within their ideas so that you can argue for it. So that I know that at Springboard there are lots of assistance around writing grants, but I think those basic questions have to come before you even reach out and engage anyone. And can you read my grant? Can you make, that kind of stuff. It's always good to have another eye on it. But it is a lot of work, I have to say that. It is a lot of work to research grants, apply for grants, follow through on the management of grants, report on grants. That's why there are development officers in institutions, because that's pretty much what they're doing. They're raising money, a lot of them through grant applications. And I'm going to stop at that because there's a lot more to this subject.
Cara, do you want to answer?
Yeah.
Anything about contracts? Go for it.
So, okay, where to start with this question? Contracts and grants, and how do you find them? Really? Searching and searching and searching and searching. So I find that's what is a few things that are really helpful is that if you have the time, or if you have somebody that you know is going to a particular event for, like, let's say Minnesota Council of Nonprofits, right? So they do a couple of events a year where they will literally, have a book and they will go through who in your area is geared towards what. So whether it's education, healthcare, arts, humanities, and they will go through each section and kind of say what companies, what organizations, what individual donors are focused in on your area. As mundane and boring as that sounds, those meetings are super, super helpful and can be really crucial, because a lot of times those people are in the room. And so I personally never apply for a blind grant. That means that if I'm applying to something for the Bush Foundation, if I haven't talked to somebody from the Bush Foundation first, I'm probably not going to apply. Like if I've missed kind of that window to talk to somebody, I probably personally won't apply, because I have found that the language that's used on the website or in the PDF that's been sent out is a lot different from the voice that is in the room. So it is really important to talk to somebody from that organization to really hear the breadth of what it is that that particular grant or organization is looking for. I find that to be really helpful. I think as an artist, there are some things that you can do to prepare yourself ahead of time. So just kind of having your artist statement, your bio, how you're reaching people, how you're reaching community, just some of those outlining things that most all of those grants are going to look for, and having that ahead of time so you're not stressing on trying to create language, because a lot of times creating language is really challenging. Hold on, buddy. So I think that piece in and of itself, talking to somebody from the organization is really important. And just kind of having some of your basic ideas outlined. So then every time you apply for a grant, you're not coming up with information, recreating information all the time. There is a lot. So I mean, I could go on, but yeah.
Maybe mentioning some useful places like the Minnesota Council on Nonprofits for sure. Also go to the Minnesota State Arts Board, the Metropolitan Regional Arts Council. Again, these are all, you know, it depends. This is the sort of nonprofit world.
Right.
These are grants that are really geared towards making artwork. Some of them are for organizations, some of them are for individuals. There are also foundations like the Bush Foundation, which have fellowships. There are McKnight Foundation. There are a range of different foundations, and some of them re-grant through organizations like the Jerome Foundation will actually deliver grants directly, but McKnight re-grants through other organizations, so that it gets complicated. And it takes a lot of energy and time. And I just seeing in the chat that some folks are saying, this is a whole system, which it is, that maybe I don't want to be part of, and that's a real question. That's yes, I mean, I get that. So you have to ask yourself, as I said in the beginning, is a grant the right way? I want to get a cash infusion in my practice, because that's what really a grant does, is it gives you a cash infusion. It gives you an opportunity to create something and hopefully, you know, build your portfolio of work. If there's another way you can do it, I would encourage it, because, and that would be more straightforward. I would encourage it, but that's what a grant can do for you. If you see it as an investment in you and you plan for it.
I was going to add that the Minneapolis Library and the St. Paul Public Libraries all have access to the Foundation Grants to Individuals online database, which can be a good grant prospecting tool. With libraries being sort of open right now, that can be a difficult thing to get to. But if you're looking ahead to the future, they've redesigned the interface a few years ago, and it's actually very simple to use. And you can not always get all of the contact information for various grants, but you can see what types of things they fund, where they're located, what their focus area is, who else they've funded. So you can sort of follow the income stream or the flow of money that way. And I found that to be a great tool for just gathering information. You know, spend an hour, be really focused, and get it all done. And put that in your schedule if you're going to go that route. As far as getting contracts, again, I think this relates to Tana's question a little bit of like, how do we change the system? I think as someone who really has had to work at not being a Vulcan, I think relationships are super important. Getting to know people and letting them get to know you is how we change thinking. I know that's not the whole answer, Tana, and I love all of your tweets about it, about how do we change the system and not become dependent on philanthropy that is invested in the status quo, was essentially the question. But I think a huge part of it is relationships, and getting those contracts is also a huge relationship question too. Making sure that there's that trust, which is a weighty thing to ask right now. There are a lot of folks that, there's a lot of mistrust everywhere. But I do believe that is at the heart of it. Systems change and policy change is the next level, but relationships are a huge piece of that.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on that too. With those relationships, I have found that even if I did not get a grant that I've written for, and they have this annoying thing like you can call and see why, or they'll give like a general number or whatnot. But relationships is key, and I always call and I'm like, okay, why didn't I get this money? And explain to me why. So I think that's really helpful, because then the next time around, like if there's a piece that wasn't so clear, and because it's so hard to conceptualize work, right? Especially for creatives. So like understanding what they were looking for versus what you wrote for, and then establishing a relationship with that person, because then you're actually talking to the person that actually read your grant. And so you know that next time that RFP comes around, that person, if they're in that position, they have talked to you, so they have now understood your vision. And so now when they read it, they're like, oh, okay, this is how it aligns. And there's a little bit more favor on your side. So that, like Ada said, that relationship is so key. And going to 10,000 different coffee shops with people, it gets to be wearing. But like you said, if you can kind of figure out how to structure your time to really build those relationships, and you know, and I don't know if it's just like a Minnesota thing. You know, I have my own qualms about the whole, like, it really does have to be who you know, which is annoying. But I think it's a truth of where we are right now. And especially in our state that it has so many nonprofits. There really is a circle of, you know, getting to know people and really getting in that world. And if you're going to be dependent on grants, it's worth taking some time to invest in as creatives.
And going off of that, just with how to navigate that space, people touched on this a bit, but are there organizations that can help you with navigating the art entrepreneur space? And then what are the benefits of being part of a maker space or creative community? And how do you get involved? How do you find the right one for you? Because not all spaces are inclusive, not all spaces are, you know, really what you want. So how do you kind of navigate that?
I can start on the orgs that help you piece of things. Springboard, that's pretty much why we exist. We help individual artists, and our definition of artist is really broad. If you say you're an artist, then you're an artist as far as Springboard is concerned. So a few of the main ways that we have to help artists are the workshops that we offer. We usually have one or two going each week or every 2 weeks. Even now, everything's online, but we have workshops of various types going. We've got a 12-part series just on the basics of running an artistic business. Says my connection is unstable. I hope everybody can hear me. Okay, I see nods, good. So we have a 12-part series just on the basics of running an artistic business. Some piece of that series is running usually at all times in all seasons. We actually have one that I'm teaching this weekend, time management, coming up through the Dakota County Library. So that's one piece. The other piece is what Felicia does for us, which she's phenomenal at, is consultations. That's one-on-one time with an artist career consultant who can sit down with you on a wide variety of topics, whether it's like conceptualizing what your business plan needs to be, helping talk through career moves, specifics like budgeting, financial planning, developing your website. We recently expanded the roster, so we've got a lot of folks who have a lot of experience now doing many different things, many different aspects. So the artist career consultants are one of the most powerful tools, I think, because it's another artist who has experience doing what you're hoping to do, or at least has a good way of thinking about it and directing you in that direction. And besides that, we normally sometimes have a resource lab where you can either rent or use equipment. Our building is closed for the time being, but that exists. And a lot of our staff, basically, if one of us doesn't know the answer, generally somebody else on staff will. So it's often, if you have no idea where to start, it's not a bad idea to email the info address and be like, I don't know what to do with this thing that I have. How do I get started? Who do I talk to? Because somebody will know the answer. So I mean, there's more. If you visit springboardforthearts.org and wade through our massive whale of a website, you will probably find some direction that you're looking for.
So I want to say that my office contracts with Springboard. So Springboard is a huge, huge benefit statewide, and I think nationally as well, right, Ida? We rely on Springboard as an organization because we don't have the staff or the capacity to manage all of the details that they manage. So we're not the only organization. Others do the same. So that's how we kind of funnel and focus, not having to have a bazillion people do the same thing. So for sure, I would definitely check out the programs offered. But there are also other organizations that I'm aware of, like Pollen. Pollen is an interesting space. It both has resources and community you can connect with. And also they offer services as well and then they're a non-profit, but they are also a business. So it's interesting that they're working in the social impact space. And if you're not on their list, I would get on it because they also have listings for opportunities, classes, grants, all kinds of things. So that's just one thing. Monocat Data is also another interesting organization that can offer services, including marketing, research. I've also worked with them. They're really, really professional and excellent at what they do. There are lots of those types of organizations like the co-sharing type space organizations, Impact Hub and COCO. Those are sort of collectives where you can find a community there. I don't know too much about them because I've not spent time in them, but I've shown up at their events and they do a lot of events as well, networking things. I could go on, but I don't want to take up too much time because I'm sure there's more, and Cara probably has a lot to offer in this particular arena as well.
Well, I'll just start by plugging my organization. I am new to the role. I was doing grant work and then consulting on the side. And so the Roho Collective is an organization where I am now. And we're an organization that works with artists of color in the Twin Cities to really help them basically in all ways kind of scale their artist business. So it's a collective of artists. And one thing that we are, since new leadership has changed, I'm really passionate about grant writing, quite naturally, because that's part of my expertise, business development, and then education. So in the fall, we'll be launching some of those courses and really providing artists with these kind of basic, how do I get started? What are some things that I really need? As I'm subcontracting people, how do I fill out those like stupid 1099s and like, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So that is what our organization, the business end of it, and then also doing events and curating events is a part of what our organization does. So being able to be a liaison between maybe some art funders and art collectors, and then those who are on our collective. So we have a cool event coming up on the 25th, and Martin Patrick 3 right there in the North Loop is a Black shopping experience where our artists will be in the space and selling art through that weekend. And 20% of the proceeds will go back to the organization. So it's just a lot of kind of things like that. We'll be participating in Flow, which I know we'll talk about in a little bit. But that's what Roho does, and that what Roho is about. And as we're building and restructuring and all of those things. So yeah.
Awesome. And then kind of going off of different types of funding, the next question is, how can art entrepreneurs advocate for more government funding for the arts, especially in light of proposed budget cuts? And there was actually a question, took a picture of it because the chat's very long, that relates to this question as well, one of the audience questions. The question was, did any panelists attend the board meeting at MSAB yesterday morning? And what would you recommend creators do, especially POCI and
You might have to repeat that last question, Anna.
Sorry, could you not hear me?
Yeah, well, it kind of broke up a little bit.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. Okay, so the second part, the second,
I had to mute someone.
okay. The second part of the question is, did any panelists attend the board meeting at the MSAB yesterday morning? And what would you recommend creatives do, especially POCI, in light of what was discussed? So really just funding, budget cuts, all of that.
I guess that's me, as I'm in government. Yeah, there are budget cuts. Local government right now, across the board, I would imagine, not just the city of Minneapolis, is struggling to fill giant holes, budget holes. And historically, arts and culture tends to be one of the first cut. That said, often it gets cut without much of any protest in any way, apart from internally. And it's usually one of the last budget items to be put back. So in terms of arts and culture within the city, that was actually, we were beginning to build momentum, and now we're back in cuts again. The budget conversations are happening now in the city. There's a proposed cut, definitely to my programming, but also across the board for other types of programming, when, let's say, the youth violence prevention program within the city also commissions artists. So there are various programs within the city that also do commission artists, and we encourage them to do that. So race equity commissions artists, youth violence prevention commissions artists. There are a number of other departments that see artists as, make contracts with artists. They're not necessarily grants, they're actually actual contracts, as well as my programming. We contract with artists too. We don't give grants, we develop contracts on specific projects. That type of funding is right now challenging because the perception is that arts are not, they're an extra. That's the argument, that more important things, and of course we all agree that more important things are housing, basic human needs, but I would argue that arts are where you make your money to go get your housing, to, those other things. It's a business. So my advice with any type of advocacy, so anything you're passionate about, not necessarily just the arts, is to talk to your local ward representative, let them know what it is you're passionate about. And unfortunately, that means being specific. It means going on the websites and finding out information, because it's not going to be readily apparent, and finding out what the thing that you're interested in is being cut. So youth violence prevention, if that's being cut and you are interested in that remaining the way it is, then go to your council member and say, I don't support that, or get a group of folks who also care about that issue together, because groups of people, you've got to be organizers in this. Show up and say no, and get your voice heard. So that's how I recommend. There is a formal entity within the city called the Minneapolis Arts Commission that oversees especially public art, because public art is one of the biggest budget items in the city. That is not being cut right now, which is a good thing, because they do commission artists. But that's because it's connected to buildings, it's connected to capital. The other things that are more, I'd say, soft money, meaning money that comes from the general fund, is what tends to get cut. And I'm going to stop there and see if there are any clarifying questions, because I know this stuff can be really wonky and confusing for folks. So I just want to not continue to go on if it's not clear what I'm talking about.
I don't have any, I didn't attend the MSAB meeting, so thank you for the update in the chat. That doesn't surprise me. I won't say it because I might get in trouble. But I was just reading through the chat, and I would echo Gulgun's point of contacting your local representatives, because back in the fall I attended Giant Steps, and one of the few workshops that I was able to attend was put on by Davis Sensman, who's a local attorney, and she argued that it does matter whether or not we speak up. Most often our council members and ward members are hearing from big business owners or larger business owners, and that is all they hear from. They don't hear from any individuals, or they hear from a small number of individuals, and those voices don't end up drowning out these others who are much louder and more understand the system better. So your voice does matter. If there are enough of us who get in there and start talking, the perception of what the community wants gets balanced out. So I know that that's not a super satisfactory answer, especially Boss Man, reading through your comments. I agree, but how the steps that we need to take are not just one thing that we push on. Part of it is communicating with our representatives, being loud and obnoxious, and lots of us doing that. The other piece is going around them. One of my favorite things to do is barter. I paid for my dance education by volunteering. Every Saturday morning at Xenon, I would, and I bring this up all the time, Felicia's heard it a million times, but I would volunteer at Xenon and get work study hours. There are other ways to get the work done and to get access to the resources other than just money. So I think that being creative and using our creative brains to push on a bunch of different buttons at once will help move the needle. I wish there was a better answer than that. But I don't know, maybe Cara has some thoughts.
I would also just to be of service in that conversation, as I'm the sort of government person here, email me, you guys. I mean, email me, because I need people to tell me what they're struggling with. A lot of the work that I do is feed back to elected officials what I'm hearing. I'm also sitting at tables at the national level, trying to get advocacy at the national level in the case of COVID, we were trying to get gig workers the money released. And it wasn't just me, it was other cities were in that fight. And that is really a fight. We need to know what it is you are struggling with, and we can help be your voice. We can't be the only way to do it, because it also requires community stepping up and saying, back to their elected officials, getting their voices heard, but we can be advocates on the inside as well, because you kind of need to play both of those games. You need to have the person who's kind of poking at the administrator, my boss, who's the city coordinator, to say, hey, or other policy people, and here's the particular policy we need to change to get this done, guys. And the community needs to say, this is what we need to get done. And I would also argue that the advocacy in the arts question shouldn't just be around grants. It should be around getting your business needs from the city. Because as I mentioned before, our business development folks can work with Springboard, because we introduced them to the work that Springboard did, so that we could get that financed and free and out into the community, so you don't have to pay for it. But that required internal advocacy, and what we were hearing from folks. that's the sort of detail level that we sort of have to kind of process what everyone's saying and say, okay, what's the particular policy that is preventing this from happening, or what do we need to change to allow this to happen? I hope that makes sense. But policy work is detail work, and not everyone knows what the policy shift is, but most people want to know what they need. Most people know what they need. They may need access to things, or they may need free classes or free advice, and then we can turn that into a policy that can get you there. I hope that makes sense. So I would invite you to email me and let me know what your needs are. Felicia has an into the city too, because she talks to us a lot, especially in the Minneapolis forward work that we're trying to get done. So I would say, you know, I want to volunteer to get that information, and I'll put my email in the chat.
Yeah, I was actually going to comment that as well, that I've actually been, you know, working with Gulgun for a little over a year, like the work that happened with Black Business Week, with Flow last year, that huge tent you all saw. Some folks on this call were actually artists that were hired off of the partnership that we built, and were able to get some resources to artists specifically in North Minneapolis. And so a lot of that just had to do with me being one of those people in the room, really advocating, because I realized really people aren't advocating for arts. As Gulgun said, like, it's the last thing that is on people's minds. And really we have to help people reshape this idea that this is why I call you all entrepreneurs versus just artists, because of the way it changes how people think about your importance. And one of the reasons why we wanted to have this creative entrepreneur luncheon was so that we can talk a little bit more about how we fit into that ecosystem, that economic ecosystem, and not just this silo of arts where we're just a bow on everything. Gulgun has a lot of information and actual data around how arts and culture actually are vital parts of an economic and a community ecosystem. And it's part of the work that she does, with also bringing in the stories and experiences of you all to connect the human part of that. But what they're trying to say is we have to say something. But what I also hear artists saying and asking of you all on the panel is, exactly who do we talk to? So when you say our elected officials, are you talking about our city council people? Because we know Jeremiah Ellison and Philippe Cunningham, right? Are we talking about county folks? When people are talking about the Minnesota State's Arts Board, we're also saying, I don't know if people are saying this in words, there's a very real structural problem internally with even the people who are on that board and how that shows up. And we want to know, how do we tap into that? How do we get into those rooms? Who is it we need to be talking to and seeking out, because they're not coming to us? And that's kind of, I think, what I want to also pull out. If any of you all have insight on that, give us the names of that particular official. You can absolutely give that, because that's an accountability piece. So we want to know, there are people on this Zoom, I know, who want that information, because they will act.
I mean, I would write directly to, oh, go ahead, go ahead. Go ahead.
I apologize, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So if you don't know who to talk to in the city of Minneapolis, please contact me and I will find the person you need to talk to, whether it's administrative or elected. Or for the Minnesota State Arts Board, I didn't attend that meeting. I knew it was happening, I didn't attend it. But I do know folks who are within that structure, because the Minnesota State Arts Board itself has a structure with the Metropolitan Regional Arts Council and the arts councils that are statewide. They are kind of working together. I do know folks that are pushing from the inside to get things changed as well, who understand that there is a structural issue. And I can connect you to the folks that are doing that. I have to go back and find out what happened. I am as interested as everybody else and have been waiting to hear. But yes, I can connect you to that. I do know the Minnesota Citizens for the Arts is supposed to be your voice into the state. Whether it is or not, I think it's up for you to decide, because whether your voice is heard is the question as a community. But that's functionally, that's what it's supposed to be. And the State Arts Board, as I said, is its own I have very little to do with those guys. I try to advocate for what the city needs, but I have very little to do with what their decisions are or how they make them. I just know folks that are concerned as well.
And I would echo, I mean, if you feel comfortable putting together your story, I would send it to Laura Zabel, who's the Executive Director of Springboard for the Arts, because even though MSAB does not always listen to what we have to say, I know that they have Sue Jens, the president of MSAB, and Laura have something of a relationship. So if there is enough, if there are strong enough voices coming that can be aggregated by Springboard, and that information passed on to MSAB, that is something that that's one avenue. Yeah, I would echo the Metropolitan Regional Arts Councils too. They're already on our side, but they're trying to do some really good work there. But yeah, contacting Kathy Muchapao at MRAC as well.
Okay, so we kind of already answered the other questions, the last questions that we had about, you know, how do you show how arts is so connected to the economy, and how do you show that to your elected officials? So thank you for going with that. I know that we have just like a minute or two more. And so I want to make sure if your question wasn't answered, we're taking pictures of the chat and then we're going to do our best to answer them. We're going to also follow up with information that the panelists gave about who to contact about these things, about different organizations that can be resources. So stay tuned for that. That'll be posted on as like a link on social media, and then we'll also email everyone directly. And then before we go, I want to, first of all, thank you so much, panelists, for all the amazing insight that you've provided. This was really helpful. And yeah, like let's hold people accountable and, you know, support art entrepreneurs. I love it. So thank you so much. And Felicia, I want to turn it over to you because, you know, Flow's coming up and I know everyone's excited about it. So.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Thank you so much. And thank you so much to the panelists. Carla, did you want to kind of give the updates on Flow, or we're going to have Flow this year. It'll look different than it has, but I want to recognize that this would be our 15th year. And I know we have folks that are on this Zoom call that have been a part of Flow over these years. So we have a couple of different things planned. Carla will be posting the artist call in the chat there. And then Carla, did you want to kind of give a quick overview around what the call for artists is and how we'll be structuring Flow this year?
Sure. So sorry if there's music in the background, there's like construction happening around. But yeah, because of obviously everything that's going on right now, Flow will look a little bit different. So a lot of what we normally do with having artists showcased in businesses along West Broadway and everything, we aren't able to do all of that. So this year we're putting together a Flow lookbook, which will kind of serve as like a Northside artist directory. So I'll put the call here now. I put it in a few times, but basically we just want artists to apply, send photos of your work and also any contact information, anywhere that we can purchase your work if you're selling it, or even if you just want to show as a gallery. And then we will have, I know, well, Cara's here, but Roho Collective will also be doing an on-site event, as well as Juxtaposition Arts on the Friday and Saturday of Flow. We'll also, I don't know if you want me to talk about the panelists or anything.
Yeah, in addition to that, thinking about the artist call really quick. So not even just to be a part of the Flow lookbook, we're also doing a call for folks who want to host some virtual events that will be happy to help promote and direct people to on the days that Flow is happening. So if you're an artist and you want to do a tour of your studio, or you want to do a virtual paint and sip, or if you want to do a virtual Zumba class, since you normally come and you do some activities at Flow and you're not able to do it this time, but maybe we can do some virtual stuff, Coach Val. Those options are available too. So if you have any questions about that, make sure you email us at info@westbroadway.org, or either myself and Carla. And if you're an artist or someone interested in participating, you're not sure what to do, give us a call. That's something that we do offer, is helping you come up with creative ways to kind of show up at the things that we put on. So make sure you reach out for that. The other thing, as Carla was talking about, is that we will be hosting at least one virtual panel. I'm waiting to see if maybe we'll do a second one, but we do have confirmed that Lissa Jones of Urban Agenda will be facilitating basically like an artist talk, and we'll be talking about a lot of stuff. I want to talk about what's going on with the Minnesota State Arts Board, but also talk about flow artists and creative placemaking as it's happened in North Minneapolis all of these years. So stay tuned for details on that. I see we're 3 minutes over. I don't want to run you all and take up any of your time with too much more, but make sure if you haven't RSVP'd at Eventbrite, you leave your email here in the chat. We'll grab that information and make sure you get the follow-up questions. You'll get the contact information for everyone. And we'll also grab the business card information if you want to network with others who are on the Zoom today. Anything else, Anna?
No, nope, that's it.
Okay, good. I talk really fast. I will let everybody unmute as we leave. This is going to be our thing for everybody. How do I unmute all?
Have a great day. Thanks a lot, Ms. Perry.
Peace, y'all. Are you all able to unmute yourselves?
I did.
Okay.
Peace. Thanks for having me.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Panelists.
Thank you all for your great questions.
Hey, Visha. Thank you. We appreciate you taking time to tune in to this month's Northside Business Luncheon. You can find out more about our future luncheons by signing up for the WBC mailing list that can be found at www.westbroadway.org. The West Broadway Business and Area Coalition, we lead initiatives to bring businesses, nonprofit organizations, and neighbors together to create an inviting and vital West Broadway corridor. I truly believe that working collectively, we can transform the North Side into a thriving economic community. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all next month. Bye.